We know you guys are big fans of bosses in video games. We love them too, to be honest. We like them easy, weird, or just incredibly hard. In this video, we want to take a look at some more very difficult boss battles. These are the type of encounters you don't beat on the first try. Only after looking up strategies online are you able to beat these guys. Get ready for another 10 incredibly hard bosses we fear the most.
Bring it on!
The cult classic Godhand might look like a silly beat-em-up from the PlayStation 2 era. However, don't let the weirdness fool you. This game is incredibly hard. It has many difficult bosses, but double Godhand gene takes the cake. Aside from needing split-second reflexes, you need to be lucky, as he can do some serious damage. Even the developers of the game stated that Godhand was aimed at hardcore gamers. That definitely shows in this incredibly challenging fight. The Dark Souls series is full of hard bosses, but the Fume Knight is on a whole other level. This boss from Dark Souls 2 hits extremely hard and has tons of health. He is also very fast and resistant to every kind of magic. And that's only his first form. Once half of his health is down, he'll power up his huge sword. He also lunges at you whenever you try to heal, so you have to be very careful. It's best to take him down as quickly as possible.
Get on the
Don't let him die.
Can you imagine fighting a video game boss for 18 hours straight? That's exactly what a guild called Beyond the Limitation did in 2008. They squared off against the Pandemonium Warden in Final Fantasy XI and fought all 20 of his possible forms. The guild leader said, "People were passing out and getting physically ill. We decided to end it before we risked turning into a horrible news story." After this infamous attempt, developer Square Enix stepped in and put a 2-hour time limit on the battle. They also reduced the Warden's number of forms to 10, making him a little bit more manageable.
Let's do it!
When you think about challenging bosses, you don't immediately think of the Sonic series. However, the Blue Hedgehog has fought quite a few difficult bad guys over the years. One of the toughest has to be Dark Gaia from Sonic Unleashed. He keeps spamming attacks and his fireballs hit like a truck. Dark Gaia's projectiles are really hard to avoid, and you need to be on the move at all times. The battle is also extremely long, and the boss has many different forms. It might be an epic conclusion to the game, but it sure asks a lot of effort from the player. Orphan of Kos is the final boss of Bloodborne's The Old Hunters expansion. This boss looks pretty disgusting and is a nightmare to fight. His moves are very overpowered and have huge hitboxes. His parry window also seems to be significantly shorter than most bosses. Orphan has no weaknesses, and dodging in Phase 2 can be especially tricky. Gamers need to realize that things can go bad really fast against this guy. However, the rush you get when you finally beat the Orphan of Kos is absolutely awesome.
You face the Trial of Skolas.
Destiny quickly became known for its hardcore online community. Groups of players would beat newly added bosses within hours. This clearly annoyed developer Bungie, and they decided to unleash Skolas with the House of Wolves DLC. This incredibly hard boss drove players crazy, as they would spend a ridiculous amount of time only to see it end in failure.
Guardian down.
Especially with the Arcburn modifier active, the fight became basically impossible. Bungie eventually made Skolas easier by removing the burn modifier in the weekly challenge. We might all be playing Destiny 2 right now, but we'll never forget the difficult fight against this guy. You know a boss is going to be difficult when his name is Terra Morpheus the Invincible. This raid boss from Borderlands 2 spawns in a mission called You Will Die. Seriously. The boss can easily kill you with a flick of his tentacle, and he's got an insane amount of health. Yeah, the developers weren't kidding with this one. They even said in an interview, if you don't curse the design team at least 5 times on the way to beating this guy, we haven't done our jobs. Well, they certainly did their jobs. Retro gaming is back in style thanks to the success of the NES and the SNES Mini. The first Mega Man is one of those timeless classics that's known for its high difficulty level. It also has a very challenging boss called Yellow Devil. You will die a lot of times as you try to memorize all his attack patterns. You really need to keep dodging his flying body parts and attack its weak point for massive damage. Only gamers with a lot of patience and skill were able to beat the Yellow Devil back in the day.
You will die.
World of Warcraft has had its fair share of incredibly tough bosses over the years. However, Cthun gave gamers some real nightmares back in 2016. This guy would eat some of the best guilds in the world for breakfast. Even with 40 players, it was almost impossible to manage all the different tentacles that just kept spawning. He also had a crazy amount of health, which made the battle feel very drawn out. Blizzard later acknowledged that the boss fight was broken, and they released a patch that made him a lot easier. Fast forward 11 years and players can pretty much solo this guy nowadays. However, it truly was a difficult fight at the time. Players who are brave enough to play Neo know how difficult the bosses can be. One of the hardest fights in the game is the one against Yukionna. She has a wide variety of attacks and almost no weaknesses. The only way to beat her is to get really good at dodging at the right time. Luckily, she doesn't have much health, so you can end the fight quickly if you know what you're doing. However, she's so tough that you will likely throw your controller away a couple of times before finally beating her. Those were 10 incredibly hard bosses we fear the most. Do you know other examples of bosses that drove you insane? Let us know in the comments. And please like the video and subscribe to our channel.